to the city council. Okay, you have not effective economy structure, your museum is not very economy effective, that's why we took that building from you.
Right.
You are not a museum anymore, you are just, that's just a piece of concrete. Now we can demolish it.
I'd like to step in to the question about the projects of physical reconstruction of the palace. I think that Kosher got the guy a bit wrong. I think, and if not, it doesn't matter. I mean, well, in a way, because I want to ask the question, what is the future of the palace at the moment? Which was your question, as I assume. Yeah, it was. So what is what's the plan for the palace, at least? Does anybody has a plan? What is the body which can have this plan? Are there some ideas for the configuration of this body? Who can be this, like, I mean, public-private body? Who would be these people?
Yeah.
Would there be some input on side of citizens? And what's the plan at the moment? And what are the ideas for the plan? Like, what can it be?
For the palace or for the square?
Well, for the palace itself.
Well, the palace is it's owned by the city. So in 1990, ownership of the palace passed from the state to the city. It was gifted, as it were. It was originally a gift from Stalin to Poland, and then it was a gift from the state to the city. So it's owned by the city, and it's administered by a public limited liability corporation. So spółka z ograniczoną odpowiedzialnością.
Yeah, I get what
So it's a public company, but it's a profit-making company effectively, and this company rents out the rooms within the Palace of Culture to people. But there's no plan. There's a plan for the area around the palace, but the palace itself has a strategic operating plan. But that strategic,
it's
that plan.
Draft, but what's the idea?
It's just to make money from the palace. So the idea was to try to minimize the amount of space, because the city can lease office space in the palace for free. So the idea is to try and minimize the amount of space taken by the city, and to make more space taken by not necessarily some private investors, but also to try and make the public institutions pay more for the theatres and the swimming pools, to make them pay more. So there's this constant struggle between the palace administration and the city, and then the people who administer the theatre. So you have the situation, for example, like the Teatr Dramatyczny, which is an excellent theatre. It's one of the finest theatres, or used to be until the new director got hired, in Poland. And it's owned by the state, by the city, and the palace is owned by the city, and the palace the palace administration keeps increasing the rent, and the palace and the theatre keeps protesting to the city that the palace administration is increasing the rent, and the city is itself. So it's this schizophrenic sort of ownership relation. But at least somehow, even though many public institutions have been, some public institutions, for example, the Polish Academy of Sciences, Akademia Nauk, used to occupy 10 floors of the palace, from the 16th to the 26th floor. Now it only occupies 5 floors. And the library of the Palace of the Academy of Sciences has been removed from the Palace of Culture, because it wasn't able to pay the rent, basically. So there is some de facto privatization of the uses of the palace going on, and it's slowed down at the moment, but that's a danger, because this strategic plan does contain that sort of suggestion of it. But there's no grand plan for the palace, neither for use nor for function, nor for the architecture.
And no suggestion for this kind of plan, like, I mean, some kind of group of architects / I don't know who would like gather and like say, well, we have it, like, let's make it work the best with it. Like, let's make it work as good as it can work.
There are some people who have that suggestion, and this is a project that actually I worked on when I was in Warsaw with a group of architects and whatever. But the city were not taking these plans particularly seriously. There was a big idea about 12 years ago, to move City Hall into the palace. So to move the Mierostwo, or whatever it's called, into the Palace of Culture. And this idea actually was quite popular in the municipal elections. And it's quite funny, because the Social Democratic, the sort of socialist candidate, he's this very sort of shy, small, bearded man. And he wanted to move the City Hall into the palace. And there are these huge halls, marble halls, on the 2nd and 4th floor, and he had this idea that he was going to hold public meetings with the citizens of Warsaw every Wednesday. in these grand marble halls. So you would have this sort of king. And then the people also would be coming, please, can you help me with my... it was just quite strange that this idea was put forward by the very sort of shy, sort of small man. But but this never happened. And this idea was some time ago, the previous, when Lech Kaczyński, who died in Smolensk, was the mayor of Warsaw, he wanted to move more of the city hall into the Palace of Culture. Because he wasn't particularly interested in sort of profit motives. He was a kind of etatist, he was a statist. Whereas the current mayor is very much into profit and money and blah, 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 and she wants to make the palace as much of a profitable entity as possible. So that's a danger for the palace, effectively, that it is going to be more and more privatized, de facto.
Yeah, and so, given that you have this idea that for social condensator to work, it has to be publicly owned. Yeah, you suggested. So, what is the ownership structure for a social condensator, and for a particular one, which Palace of Culture and Science is? What should be the governance structure, the ownership structure, for it to retain its value and have it in 21st century?
Yeah, well, that's a huge question. It's an excellent question. If I knew that, I would be very happy.
Yeah, but I mean some ideas. I'm not asking for a recipe.
Yeah.
And that would be realized. But what are your ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be wonderful, for example, if something like the Palace of Culture could be, interestingly, the office, the municipal Warsaw office for raising money from the European Union. So the sort of the municipal office which applies for European Union funding is located in the Palace of Culture. And the person who does this is extremely good at raising money from the European Union for the city. So we had this sort of idea of getting a huge European Union grant for the Palace of Culture, which would effectively allow it to be run by a cooperative authority which is not for profit. So setting up a municipal body which is a non-profit making municipal body with an elected council of people to run the Palace of Culture, with representatives of cultural institutions and of social institutions and different kinds of things. There were these vague ideas that we had for how to finance the palace in a way which would mean that it wouldn't have to have this profit motive underneath it. And one potential way to go is through European Union funding, for example. But that hasn't been taken very far. But if one could find, if you have any ideas, then let me know.
Well, it's difficult. Really difficult. It's a huge building. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, probably like the fact that you have EU and it can give you some funds is really a great advantage. Maybe someday save it actually. But at the moment, yeah, I think the fact that its controversial image may be the reason for its complicated fate. Yeah, it's probably well liked now, but still pretty much disliked by quite a lot of people, I think. So, I mean, you cannot quite constitute the brand of it and sell it effectively. Why should we pay for it?
Yeah.
We're Soviets, why should we pay for it? Because it's that kind of like Stalin's dick, like why should we pay for it?
Right.
How you can reconfigure the image of the place and the visual imagery and your project with this like reinforce the edge of palace being not just aesthetic construct but the social condenser first and foremost is actually one part of this like process. How can you restructure the image of the whole place? Like it's not just imagery, it's not just big dick, it's just a social condenser, and this is something value neutral. It's not something to really, it's not Russia-like. I mean, it's something other. It's for you, so you can like be more open to put in some money, or at least give up the idea of earning more.
Yes.
At least that. So I mean, I think your work is really valuable in this sense, and it may actually help save it.
Well, let's hope. And let's have more social condensers everywhere.
Yeah.
Возможно, давайте все-таки закруглимся, и у нас есть время на чай и печенье, и если есть у кого-то еще вопросы, то мы можем сделать это в том помещении в частном порядке. Надеюсь,